She fainted carrying trays. The mafia boss grabbed her diary looking for emergency contacts. He read the last line she'd written that morning. His face went pale. His hands gripped the page tighter. What could possibly be written there to shake a man who'd seen everything? She'd never know that one sentence would change both their lives forever. The coffee pot slipped from Clara's fingers. For a split second, she watched it fall, her mind screaming at her body to catch it, but her arms wouldn't respond. The pot shattered against the floor, sending dark liquid spraying across the checkered tiles of Rosie's diner. Clara, Maggie, the other waitress, rushed over. "You okay, honey?" Clara blinked hard, forcing her vision to clear. The dizzy spell passed, leaving behind the familiar exhaustion that had become her constant companion. "I'm fine. Just clumsy tonight." She wasn't fine. She hadn't been fine for months. The wall clock read 11:47 p.m. Just over an hour left in her shift. Then she'd take the night bus home, sleep for 4 hours, and be back here at 6 a.m. for the breakfast rush. That was her life now. 2 shifts back-to-back, 6 days a week, running on coffee and willpower. "Table 7 needs a refill," Maggie whispered, nodding toward the corner booth. Clara grabbed a fresh pot, steadying her trembling hands. Table 7. The quiet man in the expensive suit who'd been coming in every Thursday night for the past month, always sitting in the same spot, always ordering black coffee and cherry pie. He never caused trouble, never made small talk, just sat there reading his newspaper like he owned the place. Maybe he did. This was Brooklyn after all. "More coffee?" Clara approached with her customer service smile, the one that hurt her cheeks but paid the bills. The man looked up. He had dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything, sharp features, and salt and pepper hair slicked back perfectly. Even at midnight, his suit didn't have a single wrinkle. Everything about him screamed money and danger in equal measure. "Please," his voice was low, controlled. As Clara poured, her hand shook slightly. A drop of coffee splashed onto the saucer. "Rough night?" he asked, his eyes following the tremor in her fingers. "Every night's rough, sir." The words came out before she could stop them. Clara bit her tongue. Rule number 1 of waitressing: never complain to customers.
"Sorry."
"Yes, please let me know if you need anything else." She turned to leave, but her vision swam. The diner tilted sideways.
"Not now."
"Please, not now." Clara grabbed the edge of a nearby table, steadying herself. The family eating there looked up in concern, but she waved them off with another smile. Her heart was racing, her chest tight. She just needed to make it through the next hour. Just one more hour.
The door chimed.
More customers. A group of loud college kids, probably drunk, looking for late-night burgers. Clara counted them, 6 people. That was at least $30 in tips if she played it right. $30 closer to next month's rent. She could do this. Clara grabbed her notepad and headed toward them, but halfway across the diner, her legs buckled. The tray she'd been carrying, loaded with dirty dishes from table 3, crashed to the floor. The sound was deafening in the quiet diner. Plates exploded into ceramic shrapnel. Glasses shattered. And Clara went down with them, her knees hitting the tiles hard before her whole body followed. The world went dark at the edges. She heard screaming. Maggie's voice, high and panicked. "Someone call 911. Clara's not breathing right. Give her space." Another voice, male, commanding. Footsteps approached quickly. Strong hands turned her over gently. Clara's eyes fluttered open to see the man from table 7 kneeling beside her, his expensive suit now stained with coffee. His dark eyes were intense, focused entirely on her face. "Stay with me," he said firmly. "What's your name?" "Clara," she whispered. Her chest felt like it was being crushed. "I'm okay, I just need." "You're not okay," he looked up at someone. "Where's her bag? She might have medication." "Here." Maggie thrust Clara's worn canvas bag toward him. The man, Clara still didn't know his name, unzipped it without hesitation. Clara wanted to protest, to tell him not to look through her things, but she couldn't find the breath. She watched helplessly as he rifled through her bag. A cracked phone, a mostly empty wallet, a pack of generic painkillers, loose change, a granola bar she'd been saving for tomorrow's lunch, and her diary. No, Clara tried to say, but it came out as barely a whisper. He pulled out the small leather-bound book, probably looking for emergency contact information on the inside cover. Clara's heart raced even faster. That diary held everything, her fears, her pain, her secrets. Things no one was supposed to see. The man flipped it open. His eyes scanned the first page. Then he flipped to the back, likely looking for recent entries with phone numbers. Clara watched his face as he read the last line she'd written just this morning, sitting on her bathroom floor at 5 a.m., before anyone else in her apartment building was awake. His expression changed. The controlled, almost cold demeanor cracked.
His jaw tightened.
His fingers gripped the diary harder, and for a moment, he just stared at the page, completely still. Around them, chaos continued. Maggie was crying. The cook had come out from the kitchen. Someone said the ambulance was 3 minutes away, but the man from table 7 didn't move. He just kept staring at that last line, his dark eyes fixed on Clara's handwriting. Finally, he looked down at her. When their eyes met, Clara saw something she didn't expect. Recognition. Not of her face, but of her pain. As if her words had reached through and touched something buried deep inside him. "What's your brother's name?" he asked quietly. Clara's blood went cold. How did the diary? He'd read it. He'd read what she wrote. "I'm sick and it's getting worse. The doctor said I need treatment I can't afford. But I can't stop working. I can't let Jake know. My brother's future depends on me. If I quit now, we lose everything. So I'll keep going until I can't anymore. Maybe that makes me stupid. But Jake's going to college. He's going to have the life I never got. Even if it kills me." "You read my..." Clara's voice broke. The man carefully placed the diary back in her bag, then met her eyes again. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, but with an edge of steel underneath. "You're going to be fine," he said. It wasn't a comfort. It was a command, as if he could will it into existence through sheer force. "The ambulance is coming. But I need you to understand something." He leaned closer, and Clara caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with gun oil, a strange combination that should have scared her but somehow didn't. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." Before Clara could ask what he meant, the paramedics burst through the door. The man stood up smoothly, stepping back to give them room. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, Clara kept her eyes on him. He stood there in his ruined suit, her words from the diary clearly still echoing in his mind, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. And in his pocket, she noticed, was the corner of her diary, the leather just barely visible. He'd kept it. As the ambulance doors closed, Clara's last thought before unconsciousness took her wasn't about her failing body or the medical bills she couldn't pay. It was about the dangerous man in the expensive suit and the way he'd frozen when he read her words, as if they'd changed something fundamental inside him. She didn't even know his name. But somehow, Clara had the feeling that after tonight, her life would never be the same. Adrian Russo didn't do hospitals. The sterile smell reminded him of the night his father died, shot 3 times outside a warehouse in Red Hook, bleeding out before the ambulance even arrived. Adrian had been 17, holding his father's hand, watching the life drain from his eyes. That was the night he learned that showing weakness got you killed. 20 years later, he'd built an empire on that lesson. Yet here he stood in the waiting room of Brooklyn Methodist Hospital at 1 a.m., his $2,000 suit ruined with coffee stains, holding a dying woman's diary in his pocket like it was a loaded gun. Boss Marco appeared at his elbow, his consigliera's face tight with concern. "We need to leave. You've been here 40 minutes. People are starting to notice." Adrian didn't move. Through the emergency room doors, he could hear the muffled sounds of doctors working on Clara. Her name was Clara. He'd learned that much before she collapsed. "The car's out front," Marco pressed. "We have the meeting with the Castellano family at 2. We can't be late." "Cancel it." Marco's eyes widened. "Boss, we've been trying to set this meeting up for 3 months. If we cancel now—" "I said cancel it." Adrian's voice was quiet, but Marco knew that tone. It was the same tone Adrian used right before someone ended up in the East River. Marco stepped back, pulling out his phone to make the call. But he couldn't hide his confusion. In the 15 years he'd worked for Adrian Russo, he'd never seen the man show interest in anything that didn't involve money, power, or revenge. Adrian was a machine, calculating, cold, efficient. He eliminated problems, expanded territory, and showed mercy to no one. That was why people feared him. That was why the Russo family controlled half of Brooklyn. But tonight, something had changed. Marco finished the call and pocketed his phone.
Done.
"But boss, I gotta ask, who is she?" Adrian's hand unconsciously touched the diary in his pocket. "A waitress." "A waitress," Marco repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. "You're standing in a hospital waiting room, missing a crucial meeting for a waitress?" "She served me coffee every Thursday for a month. Smiled every time, even though she was exhausted. Even though—" Adrian stopped himself. "Even though she was dying." He pulled out the diary, opening it to that last page. Clara's handwriting was neat but hurried, like she'd written it in stolen moments between shifts. Adrian had read it 3 times now, and each time, the words hit harder. "My brother's future depends on me, even if it kills me." It was the kind of loyalty Adrian understood. The kind that cost everything. The kind that made you sacrifice your own life so someone else could have a chance. He'd done the same once a long time ago, before the violence and the money hardened him into something that barely resembled human. "Walk away, boss." Marco's voice was gentle now, almost pleading. "I know that look. You're getting involved, and involvement means complications. She's not our problem. She collapsed serving me pie, Marco. So give her money. Pay her hospital bills anonymously and walk away." "That's what you always do." Marco moved closer, lowering his voice. "You show weakness, and our enemies will exploit it. You know this. Your father taught you this." Adrian's jaw tightened at the mention of his father. Giovanni Russo had been a hard man, but fair. He'd built the family business through blood and respect. And he died because he'd made one mistake. He'd trusted the wrong person. "Trust nothing but power," his father had said with his dying breath. "Emotions make you weak. Weakness gets you killed." Adrian had lived by those words for 2 decades. He'd become exactly what his father wanted: ruthless, feared, untouchable. He'd buried every soft feeling so deep that he'd forgotten what it felt like to care about anything beyond the next deal, the next territory, the next threat to eliminate. Then tonight, he'd read 7 words that somehow cracked that armor. "My brother's future depends on me." "She reminds you of someone," Marco said suddenly, understanding dawning on his face. "Your sister." Adrian's hand clenched around the diary. "Don't." "Boss, Sophia died 15 years ago. You couldn't save her then. You can't save every—" "I said don't." Adrian's voice was ice. Marco raised his hands in surrender. "I'm just saying, getting emotionally involved with some random waitress because she reminds you of—" "She's not random." Adrian finally looked at his consigliera. "She's been working herself to death in that diner, smiling at customers, pretending everything's fine. Fighting alone. And nobody noticed. Nobody cared. So now you care?" Marco's voice held disbelief. Adrian Russo, the man who had Tommy Ricci's hands broken for skimming $200, cares about a sick waitress? "Tommy stole from me. She's never taken anything from anyone." Adrian slipped the diary back into his pocket. "She's just trying to save her brother." A doctor emerged from the emergency room, clipboard in hand. Adrian was across the waiting room before the man could blink. "Clara Bennett," Adrian said. "How is she?" The doctor looked confused. "Are you family?" Yes, the lie came easily. Adrian had learned long ago that confidence made truth irrelevant. The doctor sighed. She's stabilized, but her condition is serious. Severe anemia, malnutrition, and what appears to be an undiagnosed heart condition. She needs immediate treatment and rest. Instead, her records show she's been working double shifts 6 days a week. He shook his head. If she continues like this, she'll be dead within 6 months. 6 months. Adrian felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Genuine anger that wasn't about business or betrayal. This was something else. Something protective and fierce. What does she need? Adrian asked. Treatment, medication, and most importantly, she needs to stop working herself into an early grave. But according to her insurance, or lack thereof, none of that's happening. The doctor's expression was sympathetic but resigned. See it all the time. People choosing between survival and bills. Usually the bills win. Not this time, Adrian thought. Can I see her? She's sedated. Won't be awake until morning. The doctor checked his clipboard. You can come back during visiting hours. 8 a.m. Adrian nodded and turned to leave. Marco followed silently until they reached the parking lot where Adrian's black Mercedes waited, his driver standing at attention. You're really doing this, Marco said. It wasn't a question. Adrian opened the car door, but paused. My father taught me that emotions make you weak. Maybe he was right. Maybe this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. He pulled out Clara's diary one more time, looking at it in the dim parking lot light. But she's fighting alone, Marco. And I remember what that feels like. He climbed into the car, the diary still in his hand. For the first time in 15 years, Adrian Russo felt something pierce through the armor he'd built around himself. It was uncomfortable, unfamiliar, and potentially dangerous. But as the car pulled away from the hospital, Adrian didn't tell his driver to take him home. Instead, he said, find out everything about Clara Bennett. Where she lives, who her brother is, what she owes, who she owes it to. I want a full report by morning. Marco stared at him from the front seat. Boss. And Marco? Adrian met his eyes in the rearview mirror. Not a word to anyone. This stays between us. As the city lights blurred past, Adrian opened the diary again, reading Clara's words one more time. His father would have called this weakness. But Adrian was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, his father had been wrong about some things. Clara woke to fluorescent lights and the steady beep of a heart monitor. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back. The diner, the collapse, the man from table 7 reading her diary. Her hand flew to her chest, panic rising. Easy there, honey, a nurse appeared, adjusting the 4 in Clara's arm. You're at Brooklyn Methodist. You gave everyone quite a scare last night. What time is it? Clara's voice was hoarse. Almost 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Clara's eyes widened. She should have been at the diner 3 hours ago for the breakfast shift. Maggie would be covering, but she couldn't handle the morning rush alone. Clara would lose tips, maybe even her job. She couldn't afford to lose her job. I need to leave, Clara sat up too quickly. The room spun, but she gritted her teeth against the dizziness. I need to sign myself out. Ms. Bennett, you collapsed from exhaustion and malnutrition. The doctor wants to run more tests. I can't afford tests. Clara was already pulling the 4 from her arm, ignoring the nurse's protests. I don't have insurance. I can't pay for this. I need to go. You need to rest. I need to work. Clara swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her clothes from last night were folded on a chair, coffee-stained and wrinkled.
Perfect.
Please, I'm fine. It was just a dizzy spell. I'll take it easy, I promise. It was a lie, and they both knew it. The nurse opened her mouth to argue, but the door swung open. Clara looked up, expecting a doctor. Instead, she saw him. The man from table 7 stood in the doorway, no longer wearing the coffee-stained suit. Now he wore all black, expensive slacks, a fitted shirt, and a leather jacket that probably cost more than Clara's entire year of rent. Behind him stood 2 men, both built like brick walls, wearing matching dark suits and cold expressions. They looked like they'd walked straight out of a mafia movie. Clara's heart rate spiked. The monitor beeped faster. "Who are you?" she demanded, pulling the thin hospital blanket around herself protectively. The man stepped inside, and his two companions positioned themselves by the door like guards. The nurse took one look at them and quickly excused herself, practically running out of the room. "My name is Adrian Russo." His voice was calm, controlled. "We met last night." "I know we met. You went through my bag." Clara's embarrassment morphed into anger, safer than fear. "You had no right to read my—" She stopped, her eyes searching the room. "Where's my diary?" Adrian reached into his jacket. Clara tensed, half expecting a gun. Instead, he pulled out her leather-bound diary and held it out to her. "Here." Clara snatched it from his hand, clutching it to her chest. Her face burned with humiliation. This stranger, this dangerous-looking stranger, had read her most private thoughts. Her fears about dying, about leaving Jake alone, about failing everyone who depended on her. "Did you show this to anyone?" Her voice shook despite her attempt to sound strong. "No." Adrian's dark eyes held hers. "Your secrets are yours." "Then why are you here?" Clara demanded. "Why did you come to the hospital? Why do you have—" She gestured at the two silent men by the door. "An entourage?" One of the men, tall, with graying hair at his temples, spoke up. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Russo wanted to ensure you were receiving proper care." "I don't need anyone ensuring anything." Clara stood up, swaying slightly, but refusing to sit back down. "I'm checking myself out. Thank you for returning my diary, Mr. Russo, but you can leave now." Adrian didn't move. "You collapsed last night. The doctor said you have a heart condition. The doctor is overreacting. You're dying." The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Clara flinched but lifted her chin defiantly. "That's not your concern. You made it my concern when you fell unconscious in front of me." Adrian's voice remained steady, but something in his eyes shifted, a glimpse of the emotion he was trying to hide. "Sit down before you fall down again." "Don't tell me what to do." Clara's hands trembled, but she forced them still. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about my life. I know you're working yourself to death for your brother." The words were quiet but landed like a punch. "I know you've been hiding this from him. I know you're terrified, but you're too proud to ask for help. You read 7 sentences in my diary. That doesn't make you my therapist." Clara grabbed her clothes from the chair. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get dressed and get to work." "You can't work like this. Watch me." Adrian stepped forward, and Clara instinctively stepped back. He stopped immediately, raising his hands slightly, a gesture of peace. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice softer now. "I'm here because—" He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "You shouldn't be carrying this burden alone." Something in his tone made Clara's anger falter. It wasn't pity. It was understanding, as if he knew exactly what it felt like to shoulder impossible weight with no one to help share the load. "I've been alone my whole life," Clara said quietly. "I raised Jake by myself after our parents died. I put myself through high school while working 2 jobs. I don't need saving, Mr. Russo. I need my diary back, which I have, and I need you to leave, so I can get back to my life. Your life is killing you. Then that's my choice to make." Clara's voice rose, surprising even herself. "Not yours. You might be used to people doing what you say, and I don't know who you are, but those men at the door and that expensive jacket tell me you're someone important, but you don't get to make decisions for me." Adrian studied her for a long moment. Clara saw something like respect flicker across his face. "You're right," he said finally. "I can't make decisions for you, but I can make you an offer. I don't want your money. I'm not offering money." Adrian's expression was unreadable. "I'm offering a choice. You can walk out of here, go back to the diner, work yourself into an early grave, and leave your brother alone in this world. Or what?" Clara interrupted, her voice sharp. Adrian met her eyes directly. "Or you let me help. Not out of pity, but because I understand what it means to fight alone. And because last night I read words that reminded me I used to be human. The vulnerability in that last sentence caught Clara off guard. For just a moment, the dangerous mask slipped, and she saw the man underneath, someone carrying his own heavy burdens. But Clara had learned long ago that accepting help always came with a price. "What do you want in return?" she asked, her voice guarded. "Nothing. Nobody helps for nothing." "Then consider it repayment," Adrian said. "You served me coffee with a smile every Thursday for a month, even when you were exhausted and sick. You never complained, never asked for anything. Maybe I just want to return the favor." Clara wanted to believe him. God, she was so tired of fighting alone. But she'd seen enough of the world to know that men with entourages and expensive jackets didn't just help broke waitresses out of the goodness of their hearts. "I don't need your pity," she said firmly. "Good." Adrian's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Because I don't give pity, but I do pay my debts." Before Clara could respond, he turned and walked toward the door. His two men fell into step behind him. At the threshold, Adrian paused and looked back. "The hospital bills are covered. Before you argue, it's done. Consider it payment for all those cups of coffee." His eyes held hers. "Get some rest, Clara. And when you're ready to stop being stubborn, you know where to find me." "I don't know where to find you," Clara said. "Rosie's Diner. Table 7. Every Thursday," and with that he was gone. Clara stood alone in the hospital room, her diary pressed against her chest, her mind reeling. She should have been angry. She should have been insulted. Instead, for the first time in months, she felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. And that terrified her more than anything. Adrian sat in his Mercedes across the street from a rundown apartment building in Sunset Park, watching Clara climb the stairs to the 3rd floor. She moved slowly, one hand on the railing, pausing every few steps to catch her breath. It was Thursday night, 3 days after the hospital. She discharged herself that same morning and gone straight back to work, despite the doctor's warnings. Adrian knew because he'd had someone watching the diner. "Boss, this is getting weird," Marco said from the driver's seat. "We're literally stalking a waitress." "Research," Adrian corrected. "There's a difference." "No, there really isn't." Adrian ignored him, his eyes following Clara until she disappeared inside apartment 3C. Through the window, he could see lights flick on, dim, probably from cheap bulbs. The building looked like it should have been condemned years ago. Cracked concrete, rusted fire escapes, windows patched with cardboard. This was where she lived. This was where she came home after 16-hour shifts, where she hid her illness, where she pretended everything was fine. The file Marco had compiled sat on Adrian's lap. Clara Bennett, 26 years old. Parents died in a car accident when she was 19 and her brother Jake was 11. No other family. She dropped out of community college to raise him, working multiple jobs to keep them fed and housed. Currently 3 months behind on rent, owed money to half a dozen creditors, and facing eviction at the end of the month. And through it all, she kept Jake in school, made sure he had everything he needed. "The kid's smart," Marco had said when presenting the file. "Straight A's, member of the debate team, applied to 6 colleges. Teachers say he's got real potential. Potential that would die if his sister did." Adrian was about to tell Marco to drive away when the apartment door opened again. A teenage boy stepped out, basketball under his arm, wearing worn sneakers and a jacket 2 sizes too big. He was tall, lanky, with the same dark hair as Clara.
"Jake."
Adrian watched as the kid jogged down the stairs and headed toward the corner where a makeshift basketball court had been set up, really just a hoop nailed to a telephone pole. 2 other boys were already there, and they greeted Jake with the easy familiarity of longtime friends. "He doesn't know," Adrian said quietly. "What?" "About his sister. He has no idea she's dying." Marco glanced at the file. "Says here Clara told the landlord her brother thinks she's working extra shifts to save for his college fund. Kid has no clue they're about to be evicted or that she's sick." Adrian got out of the car. "Boss, What are you doing? Watching. He crossed the street, keeping to the shadows. The boys were playing one-on-one, their laughter echoing off the buildings. Jake was good, quick reflexes, decent shot. But his shoes were falling apart, held together with duct tape.
Jake.
Dinner. Clara's voice called from the third-floor window. Jake grabbed the ball, said goodbye to his friends, and jogged back toward the building. As he passed Adrian's position, the boy's phone rang. He answered it, and Adrian heard his side of the conversation. Yeah, Mom's working late again. No, I'm fine. She left money for pizza. I know, I'll eat vegetables tomorrow, Jake laughed. She worries too much. I keep telling her I can take care of myself, but she acts like I'm still a kid. Adrian's chest tightened. Jake called Clara Mom, and he had no idea that his mom was sacrificing her life for him. Jake disappeared inside the building. Adrian returned to the car. What now? Marco asked. The rent. How much does she owe? Marco consulted the file. 3 months at $1,200 a month. $3,600 total. Landlord filed eviction papers yesterday. Pay it. Anonymously. Boss. Pay it tonight. Make it look like a clerical error or a Good Samaritan fund. I don't care. Just make sure they can't trace it back to me. Marco sighed but pulled out his phone. What else? The bills in the file. Medical, utilities, credit cards. Pay them all. Set it up so the payments come from different accounts, different sources. Make it look random. You realize this is insane, right? Marco was already typing. We're in the business of breaking legs, not playing fairy godmother. We're in the business of power, Adrian corrected. And sometimes power means helping people who deserve it. Since when? Since he read 7 words that reminded him of his sister. Sophia had been 17 when she died, overdosed from pills she'd taken to stay awake studying. She'd been working 2 jobs and taking night classes, trying to help Adrian pay off their father's debts after he was killed. Adrian had told her to stop, that he'd handle it, but Sophia was stubborn. She'd pushed herself too hard, and one night her heart just gave out. Adrian had been 22, already deep in the family business, already building his reputation as someone who showed no mercy. And when Sophia died, whatever small piece of humanity he had left died with her. Until 3 nights ago, when he saw that same deadly determination in a waitress's eyes. Clara was Sophia, fighting alone, working herself to death, too proud to ask for help. But this time, Adrian could do something about it. This time, he had the power and the money to make a difference. Even if she'd hate him for it. The kids' college applications, Adrian said. Which schools? Marco scrolled through the file. NYU, Columbia, Hunter, Brooklyn College, CUNY, and City College. All good schools. But with their financial situation. Make sure he gets in. Boss, we can't fix college admissions. Adrian gave him a look. Okay, we probably can fix college admissions, but should we? The kid has straight A's. He deserves to get in. We're just ensuring he gets a fair shot. Adrian watched the light in apartment 3C. Through the window, he could see Clara and Jake sitting at a small table, eating pizza. Clara was smiling, laughing at something her brother said, pretending she wasn't exhausted. Pretending she wasn't dying. Make sure he gets scholarships too, Adrian added. Full ride if possible. Clara can't afford tuition, and I don't want her working herself to death trying to pay for it. Marco was quiet for a moment. You know she's going to figure it out eventually. That all this help isn't coincidence. Probably. And she's going to confront you. She seems like the type. Definitely. And you're okay with that. Adrian thought about Clara in the hospital, angry and defiant even while barely able to stand. She had fire in her, a strength that reminded him of everything he'd lost and everything he'd forgotten how to feel. I'm counting on it, he said. As they drove away, Adrian looked back one more time at the apartment building. The light in 3C was still on. Clara was probably cleaning up dinner, asking Jake about his homework, making sure he had everything he needed for tomorrow. Being a mother to a kid who wasn't even her son, because that's what love looked like. Adrian understood loyalty. He understood sacrifice. His whole life was built on those principles. But watching Clara through that window, seeing her smile despite everything, he realized he'd forgotten what those things actually meant. He'd turned loyalty into violence and sacrifice into business transactions. Clara reminded him there was another way.
Boss.
Marco's voice pulled him back. The payment confirmations are coming through. Rent's paid. Bills are handled. The landlord thinks it's from some non-profit housing assistance program. Good. You know this doesn't solve everything. She's still sick. She's still working too hard. Money doesn't fix all problems.
Adrian knew that.
But money was what he had, and right now, it was the only way he could help without her pushing him away. For now, he'd work in the shadows. He'd pay the bills, secure the future, make sure Clara and Jake had a fighting chance. And when she inevitably figured out what he'd done, when she confronted him with those fierce eyes blazing with anger, well, Adrian had spent 20 years dealing with dangerous people. Something told him Clara Bennett might be the most dangerous of them all. Clara noticed them on Tuesday. Two men in a black sedan, parked across from the diner. They'd been there when her shift started at 6 a.m., and they were still there at 2 p.m. when she took her break. When she walked to the bodega for a sandwich, the car followed at a distance. On Wednesday, it was a different car. Different men. Same routine. By Thursday, Clara had had enough. She marched out of the diner during her break, crossed the street, and knocked on the window of the sedan. The man in the driver's seat, crew cut, neck like a tree trunk, looked startled. "Why are you following me?" Clara demanded. The man exchanged a glance with his partner. "We're not. Don't lie. You've been parked here for 2 days. Either you're the worst stalkers in Brooklyn, or someone sent you." Clara crossed her arms.
Who?
The driver's window rolled down slowly. "Miss Bennett, we're just working for Adrian Russo," Clara finished. "Right?" The men's silence was confirmation enough. Clara felt a mix of anger and something else, something she didn't want to name. She'd noticed other changes too. The landlord had suddenly said they were caught up on rent, though Clara knew she hadn't paid. The hospital had called to say her bills were mysteriously settled. Even the electric company claimed she had a zero balance. It was all too convenient. Too perfectly timed. "Tell your boss I want to see him. Tonight." Table 7-inch. Clara turned on her heel and walked back to the diner before they could respond. Adrian arrived at 11 p.m. like clockwork. But this time, when Clara brought his coffee, she didn't smile. She slammed the cup down hard enough that coffee sloshed onto the saucer. "Outside."
Now.
She didn't wait for his response, just walked out the back door into the alley. Adrian followed, and Clara heard the door open again, his men, always shadowing. "Alone," Clara said sharply. Adrian waved them off. The men retreated inside, though Clara could see their silhouettes through the door's window. She and Adrian faced each other in the dim alley, the sounds of the city humming around them. "You paid my rent," Clara said. "Not a question." "Yes. And my hospital bills. And my utilities. And my credit cards." "Yes." His honesty caught her off guard. She'd expected denials, excuses. "You had no right. You were 3 days from being evicted. Your brother would have been homeless. That's not your problem." Clara's voice rose. "I didn't ask for your help. I don't want your charity." "It's not charity." Adrian stepped closer, his dark eyes intense in the streetlight. "It's a debt. Coffee isn't worth thousands of dollars. Maybe not. But you smiled at me every Thursday for a month. You treated me like a human being, not a monster." His jaw tightened. "You have no idea how rare that is in my world." Clara's anger faltered. "What world is that, exactly? Who are you, Adrian Russo?" He was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much to tell her. "Someone you should probably stay away from." "Too late for that. You've inserted yourself into my life. You're having me followed by men who look like they break kneecaps for a living." "They do." Clara blinked. "What? Break kneecaps?" Among other things, Adrian's expression was unreadable. I run a family business, Clara. The kind that doesn't make it into legitimate newspapers. The kind that operates in shadows and survives through fear. The Mafia. Clara had suspected, but hearing it confirmed made her heart race. You're a criminal. Yes. And you're involving me in whatever. This is, she gestured between them.
Why?
Adrian pulled her diary from his jacket. He'd been carrying it again. Because I read this and I saw my sister. Sophia worked herself to death trying to help me pay off debts after our father was killed. She was 17. And I let it happen because I was too proud, too focused on building power, to see what it was costing her. His voice roughened. By the time I realized, it was too late. Clara's anger melted into something softer. Adrian, I can't save Sophia. But I can help you. He held out the diary. I know you don't want my help. I know you're too proud to accept it. But your brother needs you alive, Clara. And right now, you're on the same path Sophia was. Clara took the diary, her hands trembling. You can't just fix everything with money. I know. But it's what I have. His eyes met hers. Let me do this. Please. The word please from a mafia boss sounded so strange, so genuine, that Clara almost laughed. Instead, she found herself nodding. Okay. But on one condition, no more men following me. It's creepy, and I can take care of myself. Adrian's expression darkened. The men stay. Excuse me? You don't understand what me helping you means. He glanced toward the street. I have enemies, Clara. Rivals who would love to exploit any weakness. And you, he paused. You've become a weakness. Clara's breath caught. What are you saying? Before Adrian could answer, Marco burst through the back door, his face urgent. Boss, we have a problem. The Castellano family knows. Adrian's entire demeanor shifted. The softness vanished, replaced by cold steel.
How?
Tony Castellano was at the hospital the night she collapsed. He saw you in the waiting room. Marco's eyes flicked to Clara nervously. Word spreading that Adrian Russo is distracted by a waitress. The families are talking. Let them talk. Boss, they see it as weakness. The Castellanos are already testing boundaries, moving into our territory. They think you're going soft. Marco lowered his voice. We've handled threats to the business before, but this is different. This is personal. And personal makes you vulnerable. Clara felt ice in her veins. What does that mean? Adrian's hand moved to her arm, protective. It means people who want to hurt me now know the best way to do it is through you. Then stop helping me. Walk away. Clara tried to pull back, but Adrian held firm. I can't. Why not? Because Adrian stopped, his jaw working. Whatever he was about to say, he swallowed it. Because I've already made my choice. The men follow you to keep you safe. They're not going away. I didn't ask for this. Clara felt trapped, suffocated. I didn't ask to become part of your dangerous world. I know, Adrian's voice was quiet but unyielding. But you wrote those words in your diary. You let me see your pain. And now I can't unsee it. I can't walk away and let you die, knowing I could have helped. Marco cleared his throat. Boss, we need to move. The Castellanos might already have eyes on this location. Adrian nodded, but didn't release Clara's arm. You're coming with us. Like hell I am. Clara, listen to me. His eyes burned with intensity. I've made you a target. That wasn't my intention, but it's done. So now you have two choices. Let me protect you, or become a liability both of us can't afford. You can't just kidnap me. I'm not kidnapping you. I'm keeping you alive. He finally released her arm but stayed close. Tomorrow, you're going to tell your manager you need a few weeks off. You're going to tell Jake you're visiting a sick friend upstate. And you're going to let me keep you somewhere safe until this blows over. And if I refuse? Adrian's expression was grim. Then you'll wake up one morning to find the Castellanos using your brother to send me a message. Is your pride worth Jake's life? The words hit like a physical blow. Clara thought of Jake, playing basketball without a care in the world, calling her mom, planning for college. She thought of what these dangerous men might do to him to get to Adrian. I hate you, she whispered. I know Adrian's voice held genuine regret. but you'll be alive to hate me. That's all that matters. As Marco led them toward the waiting car, Clara looked back at the diner, her safe place, her normal life. She was leaving it all behind because a mafia boss had read her diary and decided she was worth saving. She should have burned that diary years ago. Now it might cost her everything. The dress cost more than Clara had earned in 6 months at the diner. Deep emerald green, silk that whispered against her skin, tailored perfectly to her frame. Adrian had sent it to the penthouse where he'd been keeping her for the past week, a gilded cage overlooking Manhattan, complete with guards at every exit. "I'm not going," Clara had told him when he explained about the gala. "You are." Adrian adjusted his tie in the mirror, looking every bit the dangerous man he was in his custom tuxedo. "The Castellano family will be there. Every major family in New York will be there. I need to make a statement." "What statement? That you've lost your mind over a waitress?" Adrian turned to face her, his expression serious. "That you're under my protection. That anyone who touches you answers to me." He picked up the dress. "The rumors have been spreading for 2 weeks. Whispers that I'm distracted, weak, compromised. Tonight, I show them exactly how much power I still have. By parading me around like a trophy. By showing them I'm not afraid." He held out the dress. "Please, Clara. I know you hate this, but it's necessary." Clara had wanted to refuse, but she'd seen the reports Marco brought, increased activity from rival families, territories being tested, violence escalating. Adrian's enemies were circling, and she was the reason why. So now she stood in the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, wearing a dress that cost a fortune, surrounded by New York's most dangerous criminals dressed in their finest. The gala was supposedly a charity event, some cause that made the criminal elite look respectable. But Clara could see through the veneer. These people dealt in violence, extortion, drugs. They wore expensive watches bought with blood money and smiled with mouths that had ordered deaths. And they were all staring at her. "Relax," Adrian murmured, his hand resting on her lower back. "You look like you're facing a firing squad." "Aren't I?" Clara forced a smile as another couple passed, their eyes openly curious. "They're just surprised. I haven't brought anyone to one of these events in 15 years. Lucky me." Adrian's lips quirked. Over the past week, Clara had discovered he actually had a sense of humor buried under all that menace. She'd also learned he was a terrible cook, read mystery novels, and still visited his sister's grave every Sunday. She was learning to see the human beneath the monster. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. "Adrian Russo," a voice cut through the crowd. A man approached, 50s, silver hair, expensive suit. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I heard rumors you'd found a new companion." Tony Castellano. Adrian's hand tightened slightly on Clara's back. "This is Clara Bennett." Tony's eyes raked over Clara like she was a piece of meat. "Charming. Tell me, Miss Bennett, what does a pretty young thing like you see in our Adrian? Besides his wallet, of course." Clara felt Adrian tense beside her, but she spoke before he could. "I see someone who actually gives a damn about people beyond their usefulness. Can you say the same?" Tony's smile froze. Around them, several people stopped mid-conversation, sensing confrontation. Then Tony laughed, a harsh, barking sound.
"She's got fire."
"I can see the appeal." He leaned closer to Adrian. "But fire burns out, my friend. Especially when you're distracted playing house with a girl who doesn't belong in our world." "This conversation is over." Adrian's voice was ice. "Is it?" Tony's eyes glittered with malice. "Because word on the street is you've gone soft. Paying bills for waitresses. Missing meetings. Leaving territory undefended. Makes a man wonder if the great Adrian Russo has finally found his weakness." Clara saw Adrian's hand clench. The air between the two men crackled with violence. Marco appeared at Adrian's shoulder. "Boss, not here." Tony smirked and walked away, but the damage was done. Clara could feel eyes on them, whispers spreading like wildfire. "I'm sorry," Clara said quietly. "I shouldn't have." You are perfect, Adrian guided her toward the bar. But he's right about one thing. You don't belong in this world. Before Clara could respond, the room tilted. It was subtle at first, just a slight dizziness. Clara blinked hard, trying to focus. She'd been feeling off all day, but had ignored it. She had to get through tonight, had to prove she could handle this world, had to show Adrian she wasn't just a liability. Clara? Adrian's voice seemed far away. Are you all right?
Fine. Just.
Need some air. But when she tried to walk, her legs wouldn't cooperate. The ballroom swirled, a kaleidoscope of tuxedos and gowns. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Too fast, too irregular.
Not now.
Please, not now. Clara. Adrian's arm wrapped around her waist, holding her up. Someone get a doctor? Clara tried to speak, to tell him she was fine, but the words wouldn't come. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel. She could hear gasps, whispers, feel dozens of eyes watching her weakness on display. She was falling. But Adrian caught her, lowering her gently to the floor. His face swam above her, his dark eyes wide with fear, an emotion she'd never seen from him before. Stay with me, he commanded, his hand cupping her face. Clara, stay with me. Around them, the whispers grew louder. She's collapsing. Told you she was a liability. This is what happens when you bring civilians into weakness. Enough. Adrian's voice cracked like a whip through the ballroom. The whispers died instantly. He stood, pulling Clara up with him, supporting her weight entirely. She sagged against him, barely conscious, but she heard every word he spoke next. You want to talk about weakness? Adrian's voice was deadly calm as he addressed the room. This woman works 2 jobs to keep her brother fed. She's fought every day of her life with no money, no power, no army to back her up. She's sick, exhausted, and she still has more courage than any of you will ever have. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. You, Adrian pointed at Tony Castellano, you inherited your father's empire and nearly ran it into the ground. You, he pointed at another man, you hide behind your soldiers and haven't thrown a punch in 20 years. All of you, with your money and your guns and your power, and you've never had to fight for anything real. Adrian's arm tightened around Clara. She fights harder than any of you cowards ever will. And if that makes me weak for respecting her, then I'm the weakest man in this room. But at least I'm honest about it. He lifted Clara into his arms, cradling her against his chest. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. You know where to find me. As Adrian carried her toward the exit, Clara managed to open her eyes enough to see the faces of New York's criminal elite, shocked, silent, uncertain. Adrian Russo had just declared war on anyone who threatened her. And he'd done it in front of everyone. You're insane, Clara whispered against his chest. Probably. His arms tightened around her. But you're alive. That's all that matters. As they left the plaza, Clara realized something terrifying. She was falling for this man. This dangerous, impossible man who'd read her diary and decided she was worth fighting for. She'd spent her whole life being strong, being independent, refusing help. But in Adrian's arms, for the first time, she felt safe enough to be weak. And that scared her more than anything. Clara opened her eyes to find Adrian sitting beside her hospital bed, still wearing his tuxedo from the gala. His jacket was off, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, stubble shadowing his jaw. How long have you been here? Her voice was rough. 6 hours. He didn't look at her, just stared at his hands. They said you'd wake up soon. Clara tried to sit up, but Adrian's hand shot out, stopping her. Don't. You need to rest. I'm fine. You're not fine. His voice cracked with anger. You collapsed in front of 200 people. Your heart stopped in the ambulance. Do you understand that? Your heart stopped, Clara. She'd never heard him sound like this, raw, afraid. Not the controlled mafia boss, but a man on the edge. The doctor said, I just need to rest. The doctor said you need treatment you've been refusing for months. Surgery, medication, complete bed rest. Adrian finally looked at her, and his eyes blazed with fury and something deeper. You're killing yourself, and you won't let anyone help you.
Why?
Because I can't afford to be weak. The words burst out of Clara before she could stop them. If I stop, if I rest, if I accept that I'm sick, then it becomes real. Then I have to face that I might not be here for Jake. That I might leave him alone, just like our parents did. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She'd been holding them in for so long, but seeing Adrian's face, the fear and anger mixed with something that looked suspiciously like love, broke something inside her. So, I keep going, she continued, her voice breaking. I work, I smile, I pretend everything's fine. Because the moment I admit I can't do this alone, the moment I stop fighting. You think you've failed him, Adrian finished quietly. Clara nodded, unable to speak. Adrian stood and moved to the window, his back to her. For a long moment he was silent. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard. I had a sister, Sophia. She was brilliant, beautiful, stubborn as hell. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. After our father was killed, the family business fell to me. I was 22, barely knew what I was doing. The debts were crushing us. Clara listened, watching the tension in his shoulders. Sophia tried to help. She took 2 jobs, went to school at night, studied until she passed out from exhaustion. I told her to stop, that I'd handle it. But she was proud, just like someone else I know. He glanced back at Clara. She said it was her family too, her responsibility. Sound familiar? Adrian. One night, she took pills to stay awake for an exam. Her heart couldn't handle it. She died on our bathroom floor while I was out collecting debts. His voice turned cold, hard. I found her in the morning, 17 years old, and I found her dead because I was too proud to admit we needed help. Because I let her carry weight that wasn't hers to carry. Clara's heart ached for him. It wasn't your fault, wasn't it? Adrian turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw the full weight of his guilt. I could have stopped her. I could have sent her away, gotten her out of that life. But I needed her. I was selfish. And it killed her. You were barely more than a kid yourself. I was the older brother. I was supposed to protect her. He moved back to the bed, sitting on the edge. For 15 years, I buried that guilt under violence and power. I became exactly what this world demanded, ruthless, cold, untouchable. I stopped feeling anything because feeling meant remembering what I'd lost. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining carefully. Then I read your diary, and I saw Sophia in every word. You're doing exactly what she did, sacrificing yourself for family, too proud to accept help, fighting until you have nothing left. His grip tightened. I couldn't save her, Clara. But I can save you, if you'll let me. Clara looked at their joined hands, his scarred and calloused from years of violence, hers small and tired from years of work. 2 people who'd built walls around themselves, who'd forgotten how to let anyone in. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared that if I let myself rest, if I accept that I need help, I'll lose everything. That Jake will end up alone. Then be scared with me, Adrian said. Because I'm terrified too. Terrified that I'll lose you the way I lost Sophia. Terrified that caring about you makes me weak. Terrified that my enemies will use you to destroy me. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. But I'd rather be terrified and have you alive than brave and lose you. Your world is dangerous. It is. But I'm dangerous too. And I swear to you, Clara, anyone who tries to hurt you or your brother will have to go through me first. Clara felt something shift inside her, the walls she'd built around her heart crumbling. This man, this impossible, dangerous man, had seen her at her lowest and hadn't walked away. He'd read her deepest fears and decided she was worth fighting for. What about Jake? She whispered. If something happens to me, Nothing's going to happen to you. You're getting the surgery, the treatment, everything you need. Adrian's voice was fierce. But if you're asking whether I'll take care of your brother if the worst happens, the answer is yes. I'll make sure he gets to college, that he has everything he needs, that he's protected. Why would you do that? Because he's your family. And you, Adrian paused, his dark eyes searching hers. You've become mine. Clara's breath caught. Adrian. He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear. I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. But that diary showed me your soul, Clara. Your strength, your love, your determination. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt something besides anger and emptiness. I don't want your pity. This isn't pity. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. This is a promise. As long as I breathe, neither of you will ever be alone again. The words settled over Clara like a blanket, warm, safe, impossible to ignore. She'd spent so long being strong for everyone else, carrying burdens that weren't meant for one person. But maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to carry them alone anymore. I'm still going to argue with you, she said, a small smile breaking through her tears. I'm counting on it. Adrian smiled too, genuine, warm, transforming his usually hard features into something almost boyish. You wouldn't be Clara if you didn't fight me every step of the way. And you're still a criminal. Unfortunately, yes. That part's not changing. Clara laughed despite everything, despite the hospital, the fear, the impossibility of their situation. And when Adrian kissed her, gentle and careful as if she might break, she kissed him back. For the first time in years, Clara let herself hope for a future beyond survival. And it terrified her almost as much as it thrilled her. 3 months later, Clara stood in front of the mirror in Adrian's penthouse, barely recognizing herself. The surgery had been successful. The treatment was working. Color had returned to her cheeks, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She could breathe without pain, walk without dizziness, wake up without wondering if today would be her last. She was alive, truly alive. Behind her, the city stretched out through floor-to-ceiling windows, a view she'd grown accustomed to over the past months of recovery. Adrian had insisted she stay here where he could monitor her progress, where his private doctors could check on her daily. She'd argued, of course, but not very hard. You ready? Adrian appeared in the doorway, looking unfairly handsome in dark jeans and a simple black sweater. Casual Adrian was still something Clara was getting used to. No suits, no armor, just the man underneath. Nervous, Clara admitted. Today was the day Jake would visit the penthouse for the first time. She'd been video chatting with him throughout her recovery, telling him she was staying with a friend upstate while receiving treatment. But now it was time for him to meet the man who'd changed everything.
The doorbell rang.
Adrian squeezed her hand once before going to answer it. Jake stood in the hallway, his eyes wide as he took in the opulent space. At 15, he'd grown taller, his frame filling out. He wore new clothes, no more duct-taped shoes, and carried himself with more confidence. Clara. He rushed past Adrian and wrapped his arms around his sister. You look amazing. The treatment really worked. Clara hugged him tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her little brother. I'm okay, Jake. I promise. When they finally separated, Jake turned to Adrian with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. So you're the guy. I'm the guy, Adrian confirmed, extending his hand. Jake studied him for a long moment before shaking it. Clara told me you paid for everything. The surgery, the treatment, even. He paused, pulling an envelope from his pocket. Even this. Clara's eyes widened as Jake unfolded the letter. It was an acceptance letter from Columbia University, complete with a full scholarship.
Jake.
You got in. Clara grabbed the letter, tears already forming. Full ride, Clara. Room and board, everything. Jake's voice cracked with emotion. I got into all 6 schools. NYU, Columbia, Hunter, all with scholarships. It's like someone made sure. He looked at Adrian. Did you do this? Adrian met the boy's gaze steadily. You earned it. I just made sure the right people saw your applications. Your grades, your essays, your potential, that was all you. But you helped. Jake's eyes narrowed. Clara said you're in a dangerous business. That you're a criminal, Adrian finished calmly.
Yes.
I am. Your sister and I have had many arguments about it. I'm not going to lie to you, Jake. I've done things I'm not proud of, but everything I did for you and Clara, I did because I care about her. And because you deserve a chance at the future she's been fighting to give you. Jake was quiet, processing this. Then, to Clara's surprise, he stepped forward and extended his hand again. Thank you for saving my sister's life, for giving me this chance. I won't waste it. Adrian shook his hand, something like respect in his eyes. I know you won't. You're going to do great things, kid. As Jake explored the penthouse, marveling at everything, Clara moved to stand beside Adrian at the window. Marco says your men think you've gone soft, she said quietly. Adrian smiled. They do. They whisper about how the boss has lost his edge, how caring about a waitress has made me weak. Has it? No, Adrian turned to face her, his hand finding hers. They think power comes from fear, from violence, from control. For years, I believed that too. I built an empire on those principles. He pulled her closer, his other hand cupping her face gently. But real power? It's this. Having someone worth protecting. Having a reason to build something beyond destruction. You and Jake, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Purpose. Adrian's voice was soft but certain. For 15 years, I was just going through the motions. Building power for power's sake, hurting people because that's what was expected. I was good at it, but I was empty. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Then I read 7 words in a diary, and I remembered what it felt like to care about something real. To fight for something beyond territory and money. So you're saying I saved you? Clara smiled. You absolutely saved me. From across the room, Jake called out, Clara, this place has a library. An actual library. They both laughed. Adrian called back. Take whatever books you want. Consider it a graduation present. Clara watched her brother's face light up with joy. No more worry about rent, about food, about whether they'd make it to next month. He was safe. He was happy. He had a future. And so did she. I love you, Clara said, the words surprising even her. They'd been building for months, but saying them out loud felt like crossing a line they couldn't uncross. Adrian's eyes darkened with emotion. I love you too, even though you're stubborn, argumentative, and refuse to let me send you to the diner in an armored car. It was one armored car, and it was excessive. It was practical. It terrified Maggie. They were still laughing when Jake rejoined them, arms full of books. He looked at Clara and Adrian standing together, their hands intertwined, and something shifted in his expression. You're happy, he said to Clara. I haven't seen you actually happy in years. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. I am happy. Scared sometimes, and this whole situation is insane, but yeah, I'm happy. Jake looked at Adrian. You hurt her, and I don't care how dangerous you are. I'll find a way to hurt you back. Adrian's lips quirked. Noted. Though your sister is far more terrifying than you might think. She's already threatened me with a coffee pot twice. Both times deserved, Clara added. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, Clara stood between the 2 most important people in her life, her brother, who had his whole future ahead of him, and the man who'd seen her at her lowest and decided she was worth saving. She'd spent years carrying impossible burdens alone, convinced that accepting help was weakness. But standing here, surrounded by love and possibility, Clara finally understood. Real strength wasn't in fighting alone. It was in letting people stand beside you. Adrian squeezed her hand, and Clara squeezed back, a silent promise between 2 people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to step into the light together. She was no longer just surviving. She was living. And for the first time in her life, that was enough.